Hi, I've got a question here about something very specific in human design. Now, for those of you who know about human design, this will be fascinating. For those of you who don't, I'll keep it as simple as I can so it's easy enough to follow. Human design is a very detailed and intricate way of mapping how you operate physically in the real world. And it's literally how you're designed to operate. And it affects things like um, identifying your unique gifts and what is unique about you, what you bring to the table that's utterly unique, and how you can support that in getting out most effectively, and things like great decision making. And there's a lot of other really positive things that flow from that. Now, the question is, hey CP, this is from my business partner, Daryl. Do you know why they call the G Center, why the G Center is named that way? All the other names seem to make simple sense. Okay, now let me show you a human design chart so you know what he's talking about. Okay, this is, for those of you who know it, obviously, but for those of you who don't, this is a map of how each person, of the unique design of human beings today. And within that, you'll see there's coloured parts and white parts, and the way they are arranged really is a clear indicator of how you operate most effectively as a human being. So it's a map of how you are designed to operate in the real world. Now, what Daryl was talking about is this center here in yellow, and it's called G, as in the letter G, center. And it's central to the whole map, as you can obviously see. Now, some people have it colored and other people have nothing in it at all, and you get every variation in between. So what Daryl was talking about is, why does it have this odd name, the G Center? Because each of these centers identify a particular energy that each of us as human beings have to deal with in the real world. And you'll see they have numbers inside of them. And each of those numbers is an expression of that particular energy. Okay, so that's enough background so you know what I'm talking about. So why is it called the G Center? Well, originally, when this map was brought in and developed by the original founder and the people he was working with, the design of it was the same. The design of a human being these days is our design, but they were trying to work with jargon and ways of presenting the information that would be easy for people who were new to it. And in those days, everybody was new to it. So they were using simple, clear language out of whatever they had available to them at the time. And science was there, genetics was there, physics and that was there. But at the time, which was the late 80s, early 90s, what was really popular, particularly amongst the alternative movement and the New Age movement, was bringing to the surface and resurrecting ancient traditions, you know, things that had obviously worked for certain cultures for long periods of time, particularly Indian traditions from India and Chinese traditions were very, very popular. And so a lot of that way of explaining the meaning of numbers, for instance, and explaining the function of various centers, a lot of that, a lot of the words, you know, the popular words at the time, which were based on ancient principles, were used to explain how these things worked. Originally, the G Center wasn't spelt G, you know, capital G Center. It was spelt J-I. And that came from both Indian culture, from India culture, and Chinese culture. Now, in Chinese culture, Qi is one way of spelling what we more generally know as Qi, energy, C-H-I, sometimes it's spelled Q-I, sometimes it was spelled J-I. And it had a similar but quite different use in Indian culture. So the centre was called Qi because they were trying to find a simple, straightforward word that people who didn't have much experience could relate to. Now, Qi is the energy that is the source of life. It's the energy that all life force and everything is sourced from. You know, there is another center in human design called the Sacral Center, which is like your gut. And that's to do with your life energy and your life force. But that life force is sourced in a source of energy. You know, there's been a lot of legends about this in various cultures, you know, the Grail in English culture, you know, the Arthurian legend. But there is a source. And Qi, Qi, and Ji is like developing that connection with the source energy so that the rest of your energy in your body is strong, and or you can use the flow of that energy in dealing with people, you know, in defending yourself, in becoming more healthy. So that's what that said. The G, somewhere along the line, turned into G, the letter G. But that's where it came from. Now, that center is also the source of all the energy in the rest of the chart, which in practical terms means it represents the part of you. Normally we think about it in the heart area, you know, in the center of the chest type area. That is the energy from which all the other energies in you are sourced. It's the source of your energy. And there are 8 numbers in there, and each of those numbers represent a specific aspect or a specific way of expressing itself that that life force energy has. And just in the rest of this video, I'd like to go into what those 8 energies are and how they flow out and connect with the other centers. Now, they don't connect with all the other centers. Sometimes they connect with the center and then the energy flows on to other centers beyond that. But this is the source, you know, the headwaters, you might say. This is where all the energy comes from. It's this particular center. And the source of the source is highly attractive. You might call it feminine or magnetic, depending on your perspective and where you come from. But this is the part of us that holds all the rest of our design together. Now, the reason design is useful because it shows you how you operate. It shows you what gifts you bring to the table, what you're best at doing, and how you receive the support to be able to do that. And it's very good at identifying how you make great decisions that work for you. And there are many things that go beyond that. That's why knowing in a sense, knowing your design enables you to take all the ideas, the philosophies, the things you might aspire to, discover how you work in the real world, and then take those things, if it's appropriate, and show you how to get the energy in the right and the timing, the energy and the timing right in bringing it into the real world, into practical reality, and, you know, doing something with it. You know, contributing to other people or making your life better. And it's really helpful in taking us out of the realm of just wishing and idealizing and imagining and thinking about things, and enabling things to work in our practical lives. I found it's the most down-to-earth grounding thing I've ever done in my life, and I've done a lot. So let's have a look at this G center. And I'll just share again. Now, as you can see, there are 8 numbers there, which represent, in simple terms, 8 different ways that source energy expresses itself. Okay, now 4 of them are to do with love, and 4 of them are what I call directional. You know, some people have called them, you know, they're to do with your direction, but it's more like they move you in a particular direction, or they move things in a particular direction. So they're directional. And so one thing about the G center is it's to do with, this source is to do with love. And where's that love going? What's that? What is that love about? So when you put this together, this is a center that really connects you to the source of love and where it wants to go in your life, what it wants to do, and you know how it moves for you, how love moves for you. Now I'm going to look at another chart, and you can see all the numbers but no color. To put very simply, every bit of color is what you're designed to do. And everything that's uncolored, that's white, is where you're designed to receive. So when you look at your chart, like mine, I've got 2 of those numbers defined, 2 of those gates. Daryl has 4 of them. Here's someone with 6 of them. You know, it varies from person to person. You know, this person only has 1 of them. Does that mean those who have more are more loving, or, you know more what they're about and where they're going? No. It just means when you have one of those numbers switched on, that's something you do in a very specific way. I want you to really let this in. And when you have it unswitched on, it's receptive. See, they discovered in science, in gene research, you know, in DNA, genes, that some genes were switched on and some of them didn't seem to be switched on. What they're realizing now is the ones that are switched on do something specific, and the ones that are switched off or are actually receptors. They're great at doing receiving, but they're not designed to do a specific thing in a specific way. They receive, and both are important. So when you look at the G center, you've got all of these aspects as a part of you, all of them. Some of them you do certain things with, and others you're receptive. Okay, so there are 4 of these numbers, or gates, they call them, that are to do with love. Gate 10 is to do with self-love, you know, loving yourself. Right? Gate 15 is to do with love of humanity, or how you find love in the midst of dealing with all the other people out there. 10 is more how you find love by actually loving yourself. 46 is to do with loving your body. You know, how you find love within the body, taking care of your body, how that really connects you to love. You want to name whatever you want, whichever way you want to look at it, because it's directional. You know, this one, sorry, it's to do with love. This is to do with the ability to love yourself, either in a specific way or love your body, either specifically or allowing yourself to receive love for your body, allowing your body to be loved. And 25 is to do with connecting with the love of something that's greater than you. You might call it the divine, God, higher self, whatever, but it's to do with, you know, the love, you know, allowing yourself to be loved by God, or loving God in a particular way, or whatever. If God isn't the right word for you, whatever you see is that which is greater than you. So you could say it's your access to higher love, whereas 46 is your access to physical love, your body's love. 15 is access and ability to interact with other people in a loving way. You know, what does it take? And 10 is access to loving yourself. So there are 4 different ways in which these are crucial to love. If you don't love yourself, if you don't love other people, if you don't love your body, and you don't love something greater than you, there's a big chunk of love missing in your life. Now, you don't have to be obsessed about all of them. You just need to have a nice balance for you. Now, the other 4 are, as I say, directional. 2, gate 2 is about receiving. You might say it's the source of the source. This is the source energy, that what the Chinese call the chi energy. And this is the source of the source. And 1 is more creative, you know, 2 is more feminine, 1 is more, let's get out there and do something creative with it. But, you know, they're both masculine and feminine, but 1 is creative and 2 is more receptive. And both of them are to do with what you do in the moment. Are you open? How do you receive in the moment? How do you create in the moment? You know, because that sets your direction. If you open up to receive, it changes the direction of your life. If you don't open up to receive, it keeps you stuck. That's a nice way of putting it. You don't move anywhere. You know, you don't seem to have a direction because you're just stuck in your own rut, as they say. Whereas creativity, the more creative you are, the more options you have, the more variety of directions, and the more you can actually deal with what's happening in the moment. 13 is more, it moves you into dealing with what you've already experienced. So it moves you more into the past, whereas 7 moves you more into dealing with what's coming, or dealing with the future, and gathering the people and the resources you need to deal with that future. What you see coming down the line. It's a little more logical. 13 is more experiential. Okay, now, what is incredible about these is what they connect up with. Actually, before I jump into that, I just want to round up what I just said. I want to round it up. There's 4 dimensions of love. You know, you need to love yourself, you need to love others, you need to love your body, and you need to love something greater than you. And you need to have a balance of those. Well, it's the same thing with direction. You know, what are you about? Where are you going? Where are you heading? You know, you've got to be willing to open up and receive, and you've got to be willing to put your energy out there and create. You know, that's important for everybody. Now, creating enables you, it gives you the energy to manifest. Receiving gives you the support you needed, the resources you need to be able to act. Right? That's really crucial. So you need to be able to receive, and you need to be able to give. That makes a huge, you know, love is like that. It's both very generous. You know, the source of life is like that. It gives and it receives. It gives you life and then brings you back. Just using a simple example, you know, but there are many, many other examples of that. And it also, how can I put this? life, there are directions like past and future and present. One moves and two are like in the present. 13 and 7, past and future. And you need access to all of them. You need to be present and willing to receive, get the support that's there for you right now, and you need to be able to be creative as well in the moment. Otherwise, you'll just follow the same old habits, same old habits, same old habits. Even at one point, you created those habits. And you need to be able to deal with your past, and you need to be able to deal with the future. So the source is the source of love, and it focuses on 4 crucial aspects of who you are, and it also creates and allows you to receive time, which means it sets up, hey, what are you here to deal with? Past issues, creating the future, being a creative person in the present, based on past experience or past learnings you've got from other mentors? Or are you someone who creates things because of your ability to see what's coming or anticipate what's coming or anticipate your customers' needs? And whatever of those 3 you're involved with, or all of them, you need to receive the support that you need, the resources that you need in order to be able to implement it. If you're not receiving the support and the resources you need, bingo, you can have all these great visions of the future, all this desire to heal the past, or, bring past skills and do them in a new creative way in the present, but you don't have the resources. And that just segues into where I want to go with this, is how these energies connect up. Now, let's go to this chart. Here you've got 2 receiving, and it flows down to 14, which is an energy that's very specific about managing and dealing with and developing resources. It's very specific about managing and dealing with resources. Now, when you're in that situation of receiving and you gain the resources, you need to be able to then work with those resources that you receive to get the very best out of the resources. If you receive an inheritance, or receive your pay at the end of the week, or receive a bunch of people who want to help you with your entrepreneurial endeavor, you then need to be able to empower all of them. Put the resources somewhere where they create more resources, and also where they're safe and where they'll be sustained. Or take care of those people and empower the people who have volunteered so they can really help you give, which is at the other end. The thing that really set it up is this. See, even a rock has a G center. That's why I say this is the source. This comes from the energy that's the source. Even a rock has a G center. It doesn't have any of the other centers, but a rock does. And everything that exists in this material world has a G center of its own. Otherwise, it won't exist. But the next step in evolution was movement. And movement came from 15. Well, if you're going to deal with whatever is around you, the other trees, the other insects, the other fish, the other reptiles, the other animals, the other early humans, Neanderthals, humans as we used to be, the current human beings, you're going to have to interact more than a rock does. And so this love of humanity, or this love that allows humanity to get somewhere, it initially happened by moving down to the Sacral Center. This was the first channel, the first thing that ever really established a center outside the G center. Bingo. The next thing that evolved had a G center and what they call a Sacral Center. And it was connected by this channel 15 to 5. And that brought one thing into the equation: movement. Now, rocks move, but over geological time. It takes millions of years. Sometimes it's quicker than that, but it takes a long time. This gave the next things, like amoebas and single cells, the ability to move, which meant there can be a lot more interaction. And this created life force, the flow of life. It wasn't just a source where you could draw water, but the water was flowing. It was the first pipe, it was the first movement in a creature. And this was incredibly significant, because then what came along was the next thing, having to get the resources. So we had to open up to receiving in a much more powerful way, which is what I was talking about before, this channel here. And we had to manage the resources. So the love of humanity is really the ability to work together. When human beings work together, when animals work together, whether it's to reproduce or to deal with a disaster or to build a city, to do something exalted, to just survive by beating off an enemy, whatever, whenever human beings work together, love is what binds them most effectively. That's when you get the greatest results. Whenever you receive and then use the force of the energy of what you receive to build resources, to manage resources, to establish, whether it's money or food or the tools you need to do a job, the trucks you need to build a business. That's what comes out of that receiving. We don't just receive to receive. We receive to do something with it. We receive to empower ourselves and to empower other people. And then you get 46. Now, this doesn't come right down. Loving your body connects you with gate 29. And gate 29 is quite deep. It enables you to persist. It enables you to really, persevere, because there's inevitable rewards. If you love your body and you're willing to persevere, you will inevitably be rewarded. Now, this is huge. It goes into when we work with teams and everything like that, putting teams together. This thing becomes even way bigger than just how it affects you, because this is the dynamic that starts great teams off. that produces commitment, that produces the best use of resources, that gets the best out of people, where they move at the right rhythm. You get the timing right, and you get the commitment, and then you get the resources. And you get those resources by opening up to what's available. And all of that is what the consequence, it's a consequence of 2 doses of love and 1 sense of receiving, because what you receive sets your direction. If you don't have any petrol, you can't drive the car. When you fill the tank, then you can go somewhere. Now, let's look at the other. Okay, so the top 3 are all directional. And they relate to the future, 7, the present 1, and 13, the past. So you're looking at gathering together what you need to deal with what you anticipate coming down the line. You're looking, that sends you in a certain direction, looking for the right staff, looking for the right defence equipment. If you can see there's an army coming over the hill, right? Future's not looking good. You put up defences. Or you see there's an incredible opportunity going to come in the next 6 months with cryptocurrency, or with, robotics or something like that, and you gather together. I know the most looked for job out there in the world is people with blockchain experience. If you've got blockchain experience, there are people looking for you. If you know how to work with that, there are people out there looking for you, because of blockchain is the underlying coding and technology that sustains cryptocurrency and does a lot of other things as well. So you're looking to gather the staff if you want to invest or build something in that field. That's what 7 is about. 1 is about being creative in the moment, just being on the ball and being creative. Creating a new approach, a new outlook, taking a new direction, but it's right there in the moment, and you're doing it using your creativity. And 13 is about, okay, what have we been through? What have we learned? What's our experience? And then you switch it over. It becomes far more exciting and interesting when you get a clear idea of where they tap into. What are the numbers? Where does that flow? And all 3 of them flow up to the throat. "13 is about building. It's not, in a sense, gathering an army so you can deal with what's coming. It's more building fellowship based on shared experiences. So 13 is like working on your experiences of the past. Why? When you get together, any problems you've had in the past, you can turn into strengths. You can turn weaknesses into strength. Like when veterans come home from the battlefield, from a war, they can gather together based on shared experience and create a fellowship and deal with any injuries, any limitations because of wounds, and become, work together to strengthen. They pull back for a while, gather together, and then use their shared experience to set themselves up for a strong, to draw their strengths out and make them available to other people. That's the best way of putting it. 1 goes to 8. And 8 is really about bringing your individual strengths to a group. It's business, it's a number very much to do with intimacy and business when you look at numbers, or when you look at how it's been, numerology or in calculations in science. It's very much about, okay, getting really intimate with each other and empowering, just getting everything in balance, getting all the balance, all the imbalances into balance. So you've got a group of people acting as one, even though they're individuals. So it's bringing your individual efforts to group goals. And being creative is you stepping up with your creativity in that moment to deal with a customer or to contribute to the team. It's to bring your creativity so you can share it with others. And 7, this thing for the future, is all about when you can see something's coming and you get all the people you need or the resources you need together to be in a place to take advantage of that future. That sets you up to be a creator of change, and it gives you influence. So when that comes out of the throat, then what happens is you're influential. You make a real difference in the world. Now, let me just show you this so you can tie it together. Here's someone who's got 13 and they've got 33. So they can really help establish what are our past experiences, what are the strengths we bring, how can we put that together so our weaknesses become strengths? How can we get the best out of our past experience? So that's the direction, going into the past and making something of it. Going into the future, 7. Why? So that you can be influential, you can create change. You're prepared when the future becomes the present, so that you can be the change makers, the influential ones. And 1, so that whatever's going on with the people around you, you can contribute your creativity to what you're all doing together, what the group is doing, or what your customers need. So you can see how powerful this is. This is the source of dealing with the past, getting ready for the future, dealing with what's happening in the present. And it draws upon the fact that you've got a flow going. You know how to love people, and you know how to put that into, you can just, you get your timing right with them. You can relax with dealing with other people, so all of you can get the best out of yourself. And you can love your body so that you're able to, can commit and really get the long-term benefits out of this. And you can receive the resources you need to be able to go somewhere in your life, make something of yourself. Now, there's 2 other of these numbers or gates that we haven't talked about. 10, which is loving yourself, and 25, which is loving the divine. It's like, whoa. Now, what I want you to see is this. 10 connects to 20 and 34 and 57. Put simply, there's a big payoff when you love yourself. And I don't mean in a purely egotistical way. When you have respect, 10 is about authority in a lot of ways. It's not the way they interpret it in human design, but that's what it's really about. It's about reassessing your world and going, this is my life, this is what I do, this is what I'm about, this is how I'm designed, this is my inspiration, my vision, I love myself. And there's a big payoff because it helps pull all the rest of your life together. That connection up to 20 means loving yourself is you can deal with what's happening in the now, in the moment. When you love yourself, you get in contact down in the sacral with your power. When you love yourself, you get in touch with your instincts, your intuition particularly about what's coming, where this is heading. Loving yourself enables you to live really effectively in the moment, get in touch with your power, and react intuitively very effectively. Not just express yourself in the moment, but intuit where this moment's going and what sort of reaction is most appropriate. Self-love, big payoff for you as an individual, and helps pull together all the other stuff. And it puts a lot of energy and power into your makeup. Now, okay, loving myself, what about this loving the whatever it is, the divine, your higher self, or something greater than you, or God, what's that about? Let's have a look at that, because I want to show you this, because this is huge. People who don't acknowledge there's something greater than themselves in one form or another miss out on such a big deal. And this is why. Let me see if I can find someone who's really connected there. No, it's the one we didn't have. Well, let's look at this one. Look at Gate 25. Where does it go? It goes into this thing called the Will Center. Now, human beings, up until 250 plus years ago, didn't really have a will center to work with. They had will, but it was more tied in with other energies. It wasn't free like this one is to do its own thing. When you have access to the love of something greater than yourself, and you either love that, however you perceive it and experience it, or you allow it to love you, however you experience it, what it does is it flows energy into your will and empowers your free will. It's only in the last couple of 200 to 300 or so years, well, 250 to 300 or more years, that we've actually legitimately had a free will. It's not like acknowledging something greater than yourself is giving away your power. Unless, as somebody described it today, you treat it as an ATM, I just go to the ATM and I ask it for what I need in the moment. I don't have to do anything myself, don't have to be responsible. No, I just, whenever I need something, I just ask for it and it gives it to me. I don't do anything. Well, this is going, no, you've got a free will. You do your thing and I'll support you. This is, at the simplest level, it's the love of parents. It's your life. We'll always be your parents. We'll always empower you. We've done as much as we can to make you ready for life. But it's your life. It's your will. You're free. And this is far more developed now than it was hundreds of years ago. And you know how if you have great family, even when you're out there doing your own thing and being completely different than what I've done this, gone out there and done my own thing and done things totally different than them. There they are up in the background there. They were great parents. I went out and did my own thing. But the one thing I learned later on in life, and as they passed away, particularly with my mother, because I was right there with her when she did. I mean, right there, as close as you can get when she took her last breath. You realise that their love makes a real difference. It gave you what you needed to be able to do your own thing. And I experienced my parents really letting go of me in a healthy way. This is what the source does. This is where we're at now. This is why freedom has been such a big deal over the last 300 years or so. Such a huge deal. It used to be, but people thought of the gods and the fates and, the rulers, and it was there, but it's just become a really big deal in the last 300 years of history. And it is a big deal. But it doesn't work without responsibility. Freedom also, the freedom gives you the burden of having to be responsible. But that freedom is you have a will of your own, whether it's coloured or non-coloured, whether you receive it or whether you do it. Far more people actually are open to receiving support in getting clear about all the things they can do, and then they decide which ones they want to, realising they don't have to prove anything. Some of us, like me, have a defined will, and we're here to do whatever it is we're here to do. Whatever our will defines. That's what I'm here to do, But it's free. It's mine. But it's still connected to something greater than me. So whenever I need that power, whenever I need that love, I realised I'm not alone. I am not alone, but I am responsible. And that is one of the greatest gifts of this G Center, is really understanding that I'm not alone and I am responsible. And that's a bit of a shock sometimes to people. I'm free, which means I'm responsible. And if I can balance freedom and responsibility, I can become a really powerful individual. But I'm still, just because I'm a powerful doesn't mean I'm abandoned by whatever is greater than me. Nor am I told what to do. It's there, that love is there, and I can draw upon it, or I can express it depending on any way. The G Center is one of the most beautiful centers in the whole of our makeup. It reminds us that there is a source of all the energy we have. And it gives us these it loves, it's not that it loves us, it is love. It is loving by nature. And it gives us the freedom to move in our unique individual direction according to our will. And gives us the energy to move, the energy to express ourselves, the energy to empower ourselves as individuals, and then decide what to do with it. And that flows on to the other centers at the bottom and at the top through those other energies. You know, that source energy flows down to our physical energy and also gives us the power to use our minds. The only problem with the mind is when it thinks it's all on its own, doing its own thing. And it doesn't realize, just like my computer, if I pull out the plug, the battery's going to run down and eventually it just won't work well. The G center is really the source. So thanks, Daryl, for that amazing question. You know, it really was something quite extraordinary. Why is it called that? Why is it named that way? G, you know, it's like G, without it, we'd be nowhere. Oh, gee, I'm so glad I got one of those, you know, or Chi, the source, the energy that is the source of our life. Hope you've enjoyed that. Talk to you again soon.